Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Elevate your franchise with Franchise Now. We tell your brand story on our radio podcast and boost it with powerful content marketing strategies. From blogs and videos to infographics and more, we enhance your brand's SEO and online visibility. Let Franchise Now help your franchise stand out in a crowded market. Visit us today and learn more to start your journey for greater visibility and success. And now, here's your host.
Welcome back, everybody, to Franchise Marketing Radio, where we bring you the insights, strategies, and stories from franchise leaders who are shaping the future of the franchise industry. I'm your host, Rob Ganley. Today, we have a special guest joining us from BELFOR, a global leader in property restoration. I have with me today the SVP of Franchise Development at BELFOR Franchise Group. His name is Doug Smith. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you having me here today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I always love talking to platform brands because there's so much you could spend quite a bit of time. And you guys keep getting bigger and bigger. We talked about that earlier in terms of the brands under the umbrella. So BELFOR is one brand, and then we have an umbrella of brands. So definitely want to help everybody understand that as we talk today. But before we do, let's talk about you. Like, how did you get into the franchise industry? And tell me a little bit of how you wound up here at BELFOR running the show.
You know, probably like a lot of us in the franchise space, it was by accident. So, got out of school, spent about 13 years in the restaurant business. So, I always say, whether it's retail sales or the restaurant business, I kind of feel like everybody when they get out of school should go to work for one of those things because it teaches you an awful lot about yourself, about working with the public, how to think on your feet, So I spent about 13 years doing that. It was on the other side, more in the franchisee space, because I worked for several brands that were franchises back then. So from the food and beverage departments at Marriott's, but Perkins Family Restaurants, Chili's, Bobby Rubino's Place for Ribs. So worked for several concepts that were the Cheesecake Factory, were either franchises or chains. So got my experience and kind of learned a little bit of what it was like to belong to a franchise system. And then spent the middle part of my career in sales, kind of unrelated to that business, but kind of, earning my merit badge, my sales merit badge, if you will, in a couple of different industries. And then had an opportunity, to go to work for a franchise company, now to be a franchisor in the sales arena about 10 years ago. And we were a smaller franchisor with just two brands at the time. That was actually our ChemDry carpet and upholstery cleaning and our enhanced wood refinishing business. So went to work for them. And about 5 years ago, we were acquired by BELFOR and the BELFOR Franchise Group, who had about 3 brands of their own at the time. So once we merged, we were about 5 brands back in 2019. And as you mentioned, we continue to grow. So since 2019 and the last 5 years, we're up to 14 brands in our family now. So it's been a pretty aggressive growth strategy. Been exciting. There's no moss growing on any of us here at BELFOR Franchise Group. Every time we think we've got something figured out, we go buy another brand or two and start the process all over again. So we don't have time to take a breath a lot, but it's never boring. I will tell you that it's never, ever boring.
No, that's why I love talking about it, because there's lots of you have way too many, but we're going to have to talk more than once for sure. I mean, you have some amazing brands. They were amazing before you acquired them. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Like BELFOR has a name for sure, big name. And tell me about this concept of the platform brand. Like, so BELFOR sits above many brands. Tell me a little bit about that strategy. Tell the audience that might be considering investing in a brand or getting started working in a brand. What's the difference like between these solo brands and like a BELFOR that has many different complementary brands?
Well, I'll go 2 different paths there, if you will. Because you mentioned kind of going back, we're a BELFOR Franchise Group with the 14 different family of brands. We're owned by BELFOR Property Restoration, which you mentioned at the top of the call. So one of the things And I'll get into, why going with a brand that has, such a large suite of brands, why that can be advantageous. But even beyond that, I'll start with being owned by an operating company. So not necessarily being, a lot of equity groups own some of these larger franchisors, and there's nothing wrong with that. That has its strengths and weaknesses like anything else. What we like about being owned by BELFOR itself, it's a $2.5-3 billion company, global company with 14,000 employees. We've got 150 offices just here in the U.S. Each of those offices, while being part of our overall BELFOR corporate, not a franchise, they kind of operate, like a franchise. So each of those 150 offices domestically here kind of have their own general manager, and they run a lot like a franchise would run within a larger restoration system. So I think a lot of that was then applied to the BELFOR Franchise Group, the division of franchising within BELFOR. Take a lot of the learnings that we experienced with BELFOR corporate, and frankly, we've got pretty deep pockets. It's like I said, it's a $2.5-3 billion company. So when there's initiatives or when a hot opportunity or an exciting brand comes along that we feel like we can't live without, it's a pretty quick deal for us. So that's a big benefit of being owned by BELFOR proper. That being said, BELFOR Franchise Group and the brand of 14, when you come in, again, you may be coming in for one of our brands, and it might be a newer brand. And, in some cases, if it's a standalone brand by itself and it's kind of fledgling, there's probably you have to go in that, thinking I'm taking some risks here, right? A small business is always a risk, but if it's somebody with no franchises or 5 franchises and its founder is there with 3 or 4 people because it's still kind of in the development. While that's exciting to kind of have probably a larger seat at the table and experience that growth, from the ground up, it certainly comes with some risks and some limitations in some cases. We have some brands like that, but they're a brand within a much larger family, within a much larger company with a lot of resources. So you come into one of our brands that's newer. We might talk a little bit later. We have Junko Plus, which is our new junk hauling franchise. We just kicked it off. We have no franchises as of today. That sounds scary, but you know what? We've got 250 employees, in the BELFOR Franchise Group. We've got a huge marketing department, right? We've got a huge finance department, a huge compliance department, a huge franchise development department, the training, the onboarding. That's all in place already. And so even though that's a new, young brand, you get all those resources coming with that brand. If you were to go, buy a franchise from just a standalone small operator, you're probably going to have 4, 5, 6 employees. You're not going to have the power of 250 employees behind you, coming out of the gate day one. So that's, I think, a large part of the benefit, in belonging to such a large platform of brands.
You just basically said, we can have our cake and eat it too.
Absolutely. And if you saw the baseline, I often have my cake and eat it too. So, yeah.
Well, now we were joking earlier before we got on air, and it is true that a lot of times in the past, before you would come across an opportunity like this, where we have multiple brands and deep pockets, where you can have both. You can have the brand that's established, has lots of franchisees, or the brand that's just getting going. But either way, you've got this backing and kind of a little bit of both. So, but tell me a little bit about that. So, BELFOR Restoration is a big part of it. Tell me how the brands that you've been bringing in, tell me a little bit about the strategic positioning of the brand itself, the umbrella. And then for a franchisee or prospective franchisee, tell me a little bit about the process that you go through to introduce prospective franchisees to this world that you have, this almost self-contained 14 different brands. How do you kind of take them through the process and show them a little more about the brand?
Something probably, I don't know, it's probably maybe not unique to us, but, obviously most of our candidates coming looking for a specific brand, not all, some are just looking for an opportunity and have to figure it out. But a lot of them come in looking for a particular brand or a particular vertical, right? That they're familiar or know a little bit about, what have you. So when you're going down that path, one of the things I didn't mention previously, obviously we talked a lot about the support of a larger, platform company, but you also get the support of a large network of franchisees as well. So, and the ability to cross sell and grow your business within a community where we might already have 5, 6, 8, 10 other brands there, and the synergies you can create, working with those franchisees. Think if you are, we have markets where our Red Box Plus dumpsters have a franchise. Well, our 1-800-water damage franchisees often, right, on a job, a flood job, a fire job, what's one of the first things you do? Well, you get a dumpster and or a porta potty on site to start the tear out, right, of that work. Well, hey, I might know somebody in the dumpster space. Let me call my Box Plus.
Might have a contact. Yeah.
Exactly. Same could happen with the Patch Boys, right? And our sheetrock repair and replacement, franchise. So they often can run into that. Our Blue Kangaroo packouts, right? That's in the contents restoration and also in the restoration space. So often they might, have the ability to be on, again, a flood or fire damage. What are you going to need? You're going to need probably a dumpster. Oh, and for all the contents that haven't been completely destroyed, you're going to need Blue Kangaroo packouts to come and pack up that home, take those belongings back, restore, clean, refurbish all the contents, store them, and then bring them back when you've rebuilt your house, etc. So there's a lot of franchise with our system that can, work together. As a matter of fact, we have monthly we call them market domination meetings. And we go into, Dallas, and we go into Atlanta, and we go into LA. And what happens is we've got some folks on our national accounts team. They'll head this up, and they'll invite all of the franchisees within our entire BELFOR Franchise Group in that geographic area to call it like a lunch and learn, right? And so all those franchises will come in, and they'll have a meeting, or they'll do something, they'll go bowling or whatever it is at night, right? But they're gonna, it's almost like a little B&I group, except internally at BELFOR, right? So we get to know each other, and we get to exchange information. If there's somebody new in the group, we kind of bring them under our wing. And it's not just, it's creating an environment where you're going to be able to refer business to each other within the franchise system, but you're also going to be able to refer, hey, we've been there, we've done this. We know it's scary. We know you're not making money coming out of the gate year day one. This is what we did to get through problem A. And this is what we did to grow our business. And this is how we market. And this is the groups we belong to, right? And they get all of that as well. So it's not just, the BELFOR and BELFOR Franchise Group employees and system, but it's also thousands of franchisees across the network that you can network with and bounce things off of and share in a Facebook group, owners page, what have you. So that's pretty key too. And that's not even to say BELFOR is the world's largest property restoration company, right? They're doing $2.5–3 billion a year in revenue. I can't tell you how many dumpsters, for example, they will rent in a course of a year, right? So millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of dumpsters. Well, gee, we can send that to one of the other dumpster companies, or we could refer that out to our own franchisee network, right? So one thing I'll say is we never guarantee that, right? You have the opportunity to earn that business from the mothership, if you will. But, we focus a lot on customer service on all of our brands, especially Red Box Dumpster, because it's an industry that's not necessarily known for great customer service. So when you have the opportunity to work with the BELFOR folks, you're still going to want to provide excellent customer service, answer the phone, be there when you say you're going to be there, just like we would tell you to do with any other customer, right? You still have to earn the business because we, the mothership, has a reputation to uphold as well. But it's there for the taking. If you take care of them, they're going to take care of you. And that's just an opportunity you're not really going to get, right, built in with other franchisors. So.
Yeah, I have to unpack that. That was amazing. And I do want you to follow up a little bit. We talked earlier about the showroom, but that's sort of in the beginning before they get, they come on board. But but what you unpacked there was amazing. I mean, first, I always tout franchising because franchising is a brilliant model and one of the most successful ways for people to start a business. And it's because it's a built-in sort of mastermind network. People doing what you do. So it's not even other business owners like you. It's what you do. This takes it another level because now you have that, like who's doing what you're doing. So if you're in ChemDry doing, carpet work, you've got your ChemDry network, but you've also got the local network of all the other 13 other brands, which are all connected together and you're networking together and supporting each other like a mastermind, not just, hey, let's refer business, but hey, we're on the same team. So there's that extra layer of, hey, can I spend a few minutes to talk to you about something, right? And that's
Absolutely.
there. You know what I mean? And like, you can't buy that. You couldn't buy it. And if you could, it'd be a high ticket. It would be a 6-figure, probably annual subscription to sit in, and you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So very cool stuff. And then you've got Belfort being such a big brand and having deep pockets and being able to obviously bring in their own brands first. But I love that. Got to step up and earn it. Everybody's got a quality to uphold, like in anything, right? That
Right.
keeps the checks and balances. So tell me a little bit about that showroom. Like, so when people are thinking about starting a franchise and they come across your brand network, they get down the road a little bit. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
So yeah, so up and obviously I think most folks know the bones of the franchise process, right? As far as you walking them through it. And to your point, you get to a certain point, and that's when you want to kind of kick the tires on each other, right? We call them meet the team days. Others call them discovery days, what have you. So up until about a month ago, 3 weeks, a month ago, we had our headquarters in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It was both our sales and administrative facility, in addition to our training facility. On the same property, we had one of only about a dozen flood houses in the U.S. It's a freestanding 3-bedroom house. It's all working. TVs work, the kitchen's stocked, the dishwasher works. There's couches, chairs. It looks like a regular 3-bedroom home. The only difference being in every room you notice something a little bit different, and that's like an outdoor hose spigot you would have in your house. And there's about 6 of them throughout the house. And why on earth would you have that? Well, right ahead of training for our restoration concepts, we turn those suckers on and put about 7 inches of water into that house. And then, and then training starts on the restoration and mitigation part of the water damage business. So that's what it was initially built for. That's impressive. That's on site. You get to kind of see that. And since we've acquired and built so many new brands, guess what? We also use that. We punch holes in the walls and we fix them for the patch boys. Our Blue Kangaroo packouts will come into that home, pack out the house when it's all wet, take it back, clean it all up, and bring it back in. So it's not only a flood house for our 1-800 water damage business, it's become a training facility for several other brands as well. That being said, it's a very impressive facility. It was getting a little crowded, hard to train that many brands in the same facility. So we recently opened another building within the same office park in Ann Arbor. It's 60 or 70,000 square feet. And part of that is a 35,000 square foot showroom. When you walk in, what you're going to see, it's a brand new showroom, epoxy floors, big screen TVs. And what you're going to see are 14 brands of vans, trucks, dumpsters, bins, whatever it is associated with that brand, it's all inside that showroom. So when you walk in there, you're going to see, brand new, wrapped, clean vans, what you get when you buy a franchise. You're going to see the initial equipment package, both in and around each van. You see a huge roll-off dumpster truck, Kenworth trucks sitting there. You see our cool bins trucks that haul our cool bin climate-controlled, mobile storage bins. That's all in the showroom. And it's really for 2 reasons. One, we want candidates to know what they're getting into, right? It's a big risk. In a lot of cases, you're spending your life savings, your 401k savings, or whatever it is. You're taking a big risk. We know that. And a lot of times it's hard to understand, well, when I write you that check, what exactly do I get? Of course, we talk about the training and the support and the coaching, right? But also you get, oh, this makes sense. I get that van right there. I get all this stuff around it. Makes a lot of sense to me now. I can kind of see what that's about. Oh, and by the way, you talked a lot about, we own a bunch of brands and, there's some synergies to be had and so forth. But a lot of candidates probably having a hard time picturing, well, what does that mean? And what do those look like? And, I'm really only talking to you about this brand. And then when you walk in there, you see everything I just talked about, all of a sudden makes sense, right? You walk in there and you see, oh my God, look at all these vans and the graphics and the equipment. And I can, learn the story. Ironically, around the showroom, there's a whole bunch of offices and conference rooms in that part of the building. And that's all the franchise development team. All of our offices and the sales reps and the people working on franchise development are in the offices around that. So it's kind of a self-contained franchise development, discovery day driven, area that we want people to come in and get comfortable with. And, it just speaks to this again, it all boils down to the support you get, and that's the experience you have. And I think it just really wraps things up nicely. And when I say you come in and kick the tires, you are literally walking around the showroom kicking the tires if that's what you feel like you do. So it's really
do you make people test drive the truck? My manager won't give you a deal unless you test drive the truck.
Yeah, it depends on the truck. If you're not CDL qualified, you're not getting in the big ones. But they don't even let me. They don't even let me drive those as much as I am.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But kicking the tire, that sounds. I just have to comment. I mean, I've never had anything like that described to me. It feels like a 365-day expo that's always open, and
it really is. We had a couple of franchise consultants in last week, and they walked, and I told them the same thing I just told you, to be honest with you. And I can see on your face you're excited about the concept, and you haven't seen it. And I told them the same thing. And then when they walked in the door to the showroom, they literally like, "Oh my God, I didn't. You told me about it, but I kind of didn't think it was this." So they're like, this is amazing. This is absolutely overwhelming. I mean, it's just so incredible what you've done here. We've not seen something like this out there, in the field, even with other large franchisors. They've not, they said, I've not seen this type of setup. And, it answers questions we don't even need to ask you now, because we can see what it is that we're talking about. So I don't know. As you can tell, we're very proud of it. It's brand new. It's 3 weeks old. We're having a lot of visitors, candidates, as well as, franchise consultants in over the next 4 weeks or so, and kind of showing it off and educating people. And again, I think when you see it, it gives you a lot of confidence in the support and the breadth of the company as you're coming in.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a no-brainer in a sense that, I mean, I kind of made a comment to you earlier about if you show up there, I don't know how you leave without a business, right? But at the end of the day, probably, like you said, there are factors, and it is a big decision. But for the most part, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So you've got a lot of power in communicating, even the synergy and connectivity between the brands too.
Absolutely.
Probably just kind of becomes even more clear. And the way you broke it down earlier, I thought was good too. There's all these things that all of a sudden you need that make perfect sense, but they're specialty companies the pack out and of course cleaning rugs and moving, getting dumpsters and just different things that you need when you do restoration. And I've worked with restoration companies in the past, couple brands, and I'm in the marketing, consulting, and technology, right? And working with them, and they were solos, and they did restoration, and it was always about partnering with other entities that do those complementary things, right? So much easier if you're all on the same side, though. So that's very convenient. So good stuff. So what can you tell me if we look at this, right? You have 14 brands and you have different franchisees working in markets together. We talked a little bit about the brainstorm or the mastermind and getting together. But in terms of operations and technology, is there a way or things you're thinking about or working on that kind of just make it really easy to work together? Or you're building in sort of integration with these various brands? You're thinking about that as you deliver technology into their business models?
We do, actually. So really basic things we have a website, the BELFOR family website, which is actually if you were to go there today, you can put in your zip code, and what's going to do it, all of our brands in that area are going to pop up, right? So you can see all the brands. We use that both for consumers and for candidates coming in, right? If you're a new franchise, let me just go there real quick. Oh, I can see these other 12 franchisees right in my area. It's got all their contact information and so forth. So things like that are pretty basic, very helpful, but very basic. Excuse me. A lot of the, we can also get economies of scale, right? When it's just buying equipment and or technology earlier in the week. So a lot of our brands have CRM and point of sale systems that are specific to their industries or what have you. But some of them, don't need something specific. It could, to their industry. It can be just, a customer service, home service type of CRM and platform. So we've got various ones at different brands. But for example, we had a meeting earlier this week with a particular CRM point of service brand who is they look pretty sharp. They only work with one of our brands today. But they had some really interesting visions of what their system can do and how it can help franchising and so forth. So, they came in and they presented to all 14 brand presidents, the franchise development team, the coaches, anybody that would really have a vested interest in working day to day with the CRM and point of sale systems, as well as some key franchisees. And so it was a large group. They presented to about 50 of us, and it was to talk about all the what they do today, what's kind of on their roadmap, how they think it can work with each of our individual businesses. So they're looking to grow their business within our family of brands, and not just one, but they're trying to showcase both from pricing and economies of scale and what it can do for a brand. Or walking away from that, let's all talk about the things we like. Let's talk about the 3 things each brand maybe thinks they need that wasn't offered. Let's get back with them, see how much of it they could potentially build out for us. And then potentially down the road, we have one CRM system for all the brands, and then you get, it's not so disparate, and you get some synergies and some economies, of doing that. I don't know if we'll do it, but that's just the type of thing that we look at on a regular basis, to see how we might help the system itself, the franchisees, and frankly, usually that helps us at the corporate level, right? And be able to track and report and so forth. So those are the things we're typing to look at.
Yeah, well, and I say this all the time with technology. I've been saying it my whole life, really, my whole career. But it is sort of an operational plan and skill to innovate, right? I mean, sometimes you innovate through problems. Like I know COVID, right? We all Absolutely. Became something. You guys, your industry really was just on fire because we were dependent on you in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
But you had to innovate through that, and that's one way of innovating, which franchising is. I mean, there was no better place to be in that scenario than to be with a franchise brand, one side or the other. But beyond that, you've got technology. It's been moving very quickly in the last 20 some years with the internet, and then now you have AI, right? With all that going on, of course, other types of tech. So the idea of innovating is a process, and it has to be, because you're just not going to take advantage of everything that you could. But that takes time. And it's risky if you're trying to implement it in your daily operations when you're trying to run a business, right? So that's what we're describing. Not only that they even just to have the meetings, try to get down to what should we do. It's then, rolling it out properly and at the right time, but really looking at what levers, like what matters to the business and to the customer and to the franchisee. Not so much let's keep up, right? It's more applying it to a business, something that will move a needle somewhere that matters. And that just takes time. If you're being too reactive and say, hey, we just need this, then you end up implementing things that can even work against you sometimes. So franchises really offer that. And I don't think they talk about it much. Because again, innovating is a process. You can hire people just to do that for you, right? Just to test things regularly. And I'm a big believer as a tech guy, you should be good at testing so you can learn about things quickly and then decide what will work. So yeah, very cool stuff. And I love the collaboration that you were describing there.
Well, you mentioned, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it because everybody mentions it. Right. AI, that's moving so fast. I'm probably like most people, I'm equally excited and scared of AI at the same time. But, we had lunch with a company yesterday, for example, and, it's a company that provides AI customer service. And I know a lot of people are implementing that. I know Salesforce, for example, had their big Dreamforce convention out in California this week, and they've got a new product, the agent, and they're really rolling out, AI as your customer service, tool, right, for their businesses. And so, I spent a lot of the last week or so listening to demos, right? And it's moving so quickly. It's getting very hard to determine whether I'm talking to a person or not. I think we joked about that a little bit earlier, but the samples, they showed us some customer service samples, like with an HVAC company, for example. And, I don't think the person on the other end of the call ever knew they were talking to AI. It was super intuitive. It booked appointments. It asked for follow-up questions. It was very responsive, very quickly, very accurate, scary. So, and on some of the calls, I said, I really did have a hard time, listening. determining if that was AI or not. And they were all AI, but I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I'm not saying you can't stump it, but it's moving fast. And so we were looking at it. Do we use that somehow for franchise development? It certainly has a potential, for some of our franchisees.
Yeah.
With a lot of franchise business, especially home service, it's not
Right.
it's not a restaurant. You're going to have a whole bunch of employees when you open your restaurant. With home services, you can have a few people, or in a lot of cases, it's owner operator to start, right? They might have one van and so forth. You don't have a lot of resources. One of the things we used to struggle with, let's say it's Ken Bright Carpet Cleaning, owner operator. He's out there hustling, right? He's doing 3-4 houses a day, running a loud piece of equipment. His phone's ringing, buzzing. He may not be able to answer. You don't answer, somebody's moving on to the next carpet cleaning company, right?
Yeah.
So what if AI picks up after 3 rings and it does all that for you and talks all through, where and when and pricing and, I can call you back if I don't know an answer. And it does all that for you as opposed to going to voicemail, for example, right? I don't know that it ever replaces a human, but in cases like that could be extraordinarily helpful and let you keep potential business that you might otherwise have lost. So it's got a lot of applications. And I think this industry, if people aren't starting to adopt it and play with it, I think they're going to be behind the curve for sure.
Right. No doubt. And that's great to hear. And that's sort of my wheelhouse a little bit, obviously wanting to be ahead of the game anyway, but I've been dealing with it for a little while, even before ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say what I like to reinforce is that I want to, for both of us, right? Like as we're talking to customers and people and working with the human race, what we do, I think AI is the power of human, right? I think it'll help us be more connected with each other. It'll help us raise what we can do for each other in our businesses, create new ideas where we have more time to interact and where AI can do the blocking and tackling of things that we probably couldn't do or couldn't get to or wouldn't want to do, or every single day, the same, and one thing about
Yep.
AI is it is consistent and it will, I do think we have to work with AI more and let people know. I don't like that wondering, like you were saying, I know what you mean. Like I had a company I was talking to, one of the AI companies about 6 months ago. And I had to ask the guy, I said, "You're not an AI, right?" Like I wanted to make sure they weren't just using AI for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it is that thing where I think we need to identify that, and not be afraid of it. It's just it's the brand AI or the customer service AI over at BELFOR. It's important. It's part of your brand. So I think we all have to think that way and not be afraid of it and embrace it and make it better for us and our customers. And that's really the focus, right? But you're right. You're not going to be able to beat that eventually. They're going to be, I always joke, AI is always like, "Hey, can you help me do this?" It's always like, "Certainly," with an exclamation point, right? It's always ready to go, So yeah, I think
the funny thing is it doesn't take sick days. It doesn't call out. It's not hungover.
Right.
It doesn't get caught in traffic. It's always there.
Right. Right. So let's just embrace the goodness of it and we'll become better humans because of it. That's what I think.
I hope that's where it goes. I know there's some risks there, but I hope that I think we need to get over the stigma of I think what people are when they first think about it, if they're not as close to it as like you are, they think like IVR and press 1 for English, press 2 for customer service, and just getting caught in that endless, prompt thing that takes them 3 minutes, I think they feel like that's what it is. I don't think they understand. A lot of people don't understand how much more human it is, if you will, and how much more intuitive it is. And I think as people experience it, that will come around. But I get it's new, and I get why people are, a little hesitant there. Sure.
Yeah. But once you get used to getting what you want real quick, it's like, I don't got to wait anymore. I think I'm good with that. So that's all good stuff. Yeah, I'm excited. I think there's definitely some quantum leaps ahead. It will be fast. It will be big changes, but people will adapt at their pace, and that's the difference. I think we have a bullpen of great capability just waiting for when we're ready to really just get it out there in the right way. So all good, and we'll make good use of it. But all right, so just looking at the business model, I want to make sure I just unpack it quickly.
Sure.
So like with restoration, just as a sort of maybe calling it that a sort of foundation, right? as well that they're not, they're doing business anyway, like your carpet cleaning. It's not just about restoration.
Mhm.
But tell me a little bit about like how you see the industry moving forward. What drives restoration? What drives home services? Obviously, you guys are bringing in these brands to make this a holistic solution, right? But tell me a little bit about that sort of in the numbers. Like how does that and where do you see this growing? And just for the people that are considering one of these brands, how does that look for the future?
Well, we talked earlier about the parent company, right? So obviously we have 14 brands. A couple of them play in the restoration space and several don't or have loose, attachments to it. Um, One of the nice things is, businesses can be very cyclical. I think being owned and our base and parent company, being a restoration company, right? It's about, I hate that this is an overused word, right? It's about as recession resistant or proof that you can get, right? I mean, so when you get to restoration space, right, it's not a want, it's a need, right? It's your house has water damage or flooding or fire or smoke, or you were in a hurricane or a tornado or a wildfire, what have you, right? It's something that has to be restored. So
Yeah.
that business is there come hell or high water. I mean, that's always going to be there. So it's nice to have a foundation of a business. Frankly, it sucks that we even have that business, right? I hate anybody to have to go through a traumatic, an emotional event like that, losing your home or a fire or what have you, right? I hate that.
Yeah.
What we pride ourselves is going in and doing our best at the customer's worst, right? I mean, they're down, they've lost things, they've lost photo albums, they've lost child's stuff, and whatever it is, right? They've lost everything in some cases, right? And they just don't know what to do. And we pride ourselves in coming and being that shoulder to lean on, and try to put as much of that back as we can. It's not just restoring their belongings, their home, their car, what have you. It's to the best of our ability restoring their lives, right? And that's what we really pride ourselves on. And when we look for companies to bring into the portfolio, we try to find companies that have a play there, right? So, and that they are, helping people, at the human level, right? It's not just trying to sell a service, right? We try to have things that are pretty necessary and things that help our customers. So at some point in time, you're going to need a dumpster and a porta potty, frankly. But
Yeah, right.
but I mean, you mentioned cleaning carpets. Everyone wants clean carpets, but there's a lot of events. When you look at our, our exchange of ideas between our franchisees on their owner Facebook pages and things like that, right? You see, oh my God, this family had a traumatic event and there's blood on their couch. How do I clean that? What do we do in that case? On their carpet. There's all kinds of things that are emotional, and it's not just every day. Hey, I got a spot. It can be a lot bigger than that. Somebody's fell and they put their knee and arm through the wall. Oh my God, are they okay? We'll come fix the damage, but are they okay? And we want to, patch over that. Everything has a little twist to trying to put their lives back together in some way, shape, or form. So we have a plumbing franchise, our Z Plumbers brand. I mean, a lot of people talk about the trades and whether one should go to college or get into the trades and how valuable a trades experience and job is, and how short we are as a country in some of those trades, and how much money you can actually make versus maybe a 4-year degree job, right? Some of these plumbers, they start an apprenticeship and become a plumber. By the end of those 4 years, somebody gets out of college and starts their $50,000 a year job. That 4-year plumber is already making $100,000, in the plumbing business. So there's a lot of talk about that. So, everyone needs a plumber. Everyone. You got water, you got a toilet, you need a plumber at some point in time, right? Another business that's always going to be, needed out there. During COVID and the pandemic, our Ducks brand, duct cleaning, indoor air quality. Holy, I mean,
Right.
talk about a silver lining in an event like that. What an awful event, but how much business did they grow in cleaning people's homes and making them feel more comfortable, more sanitary, during that crisis. So, it's a lot of brands like that can come in and help restore their world in some way, shape, or form. And we love that. We absolutely love that. Culturally, that's what we're about.
I think, you nailed me there. That's what I love, those ahas. That was an aha for me. Because that really that helped me. Obviously, there's the business side and, the numbers, you're looking at everything,
Sure.
but bringing in brands through the filter of how can we restore that person's life? How can we
Absolutely.
make that transition through that painful period as easy as we can? As many silver linings as we can have. That's pretty cool, man. And I can see that. Like you're all, so many things pop up, and if you're all sort of cohesive, you sort of have it, right? It's like we got this, we can bring it in, we got that. And it's all about making it a little easier, just a little easier on the homeowner. So I like that. That's cool. Yeah, because that kind of gives it sort of the starting from that restoration scenario, which you don't like that to be the trigger, and it's not
Hmm.
always the trigger, but those brands all work together cohesively to restore your life. I don't know, maybe that's a marketing tagline you get in there. We restore
Yeah.
lives.
PM.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So good stuff. Well, before I let you go, one thing I like to kind of wrap up with is this is a lot to unpack. So I definitely hope that we can talk again. But if I am interested, if I'm thinking I want to start a business, and one of the awesome brands that you guys have is sort of calling me a little, what would be the advice you might give that person? How do they work through it? How do they know in their gut that it might be the right fit for them?
We talk a lot about this during the candidates, onboarding process or going through the sales process. But and a little bit we just touched on. So when we're talking to candidates, and again, right, everybody wants to know, how much money, how much does it cost, how much money can I make? I mean, that's not
Right.
unique to us, right? That's every business out there, and that's part of the conversation, sure. But we try to show them. We talk a little bit about our new facility. We try to show them culturally what we're all about. At the same time, we're trying to figure out if they're a cultural fit, right? If it's always just about, well, how much money can I make? I know, but how much money can I make? That's usually a little bit of a red flag, frankly, because if you come in and you have a genuine concern for people and you want to help people, and you do that and you execute on that, the other questions, how much money can I make? How much am I going to do in revenue? That kind of takes care of itself, right? If you first just approach, what am I passionate about? When I say passionate, if you're coming, no one has to be passionate about cleaning a toilet or fixing a toilet. That's
Right.
not right. I'm talking about. I back up to what we just talked about, right? Restoring people's lives. You need to be passionate about helping people, being a part of your community. A big part of networking and growing your business should be networking and going to the Chamber of Commerce and the BNI groups and your church groups and whatever that is, going and talking at the school. Those should all be part of your business, not just because it's networking, but because you're trying to become part of that fabric of the community, right? And the more you do that, the more that's going to take care of your business. So we're looking for people. They don't have to come in with sales and marketing skills specifically, but they've got to be able to talk to people. We're in the home service space. You are in people's homes. You need to be able on the phone, in person, you need to be able to go in, start a conversation, relate to that person, be empathetic, understand what they're going through, and then, adapt to that and figure out how you can help them. The business part will take care of itself. But if you can't do that on the front end, home service or business may not be for you. But we want to try to figure that out. At the same time, you're trying to figure out, if I'm that person, how do they support me, on a day-to-day basis? So that's kind of the exchange of information we're trying to garner. And like I mentioned earlier, they may come in for one brand because they saw and got excited about it, and they may leave with another one. I mean, we've got a lot in there, and maybe they hear or see something that says, wow, tell me about that a little bit. I didn't realize you guys did that too. So tell me about what that brand looks like. So I can't say that my friend dev guy on the first brand might be as excited about that, but
Exactly.
we want to make sure that at the end of the day, whatever they see, whatever they're excited about, whatever they see being passionate about, that's the best fit for them. And that's the direction they go in. Because again, taking care of business, the business takes care of you. So that's just the way we look at candidates and the way people should look at themselves, as they get into this process. I think, buying a franchise, starting any small business, I can't think of anything that teaches you as much about yourself other than maybe getting married. I don't know what else teaches you as much about yourself as going through that process, So, obviously you come in, you're going to talk to other franchisees, you're going to talk to everybody in our corporate, and you're going to talk to yourself, frankly.
Yeah.
And,
Right,
that's a big part of it. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, well, the cool thing, I think I said earlier, like the cake and eat it too. I feel like, you can come in. It's not like you can't own other brands someday. They're all synergistic. You can build your own little personal empire.
And we didn't
You
even
don't
talk
really,
about, franchisees that have multiple brands with us. We have
right.
several
That's what I'm saying.
franchisees that
You could just have a plan, right? You don't have to necessarily pick, one of the 14 to start somewhere, right? And then
we have
build from
several
there.
1-800 water damage franchisees that also became Blue Kangaroo Packouts franchisees. They are so right. So you go in, you get the first call, you're on site cleaning up a flood, a fire, etc. Well, guess what? I need all this stuff out of here so I can rip up the carpets and tear down the walls and what have you. How do we get all this stuff out of here? Oh, I call a dumpster. Wait, I'm going to call a contents company. Oh, I'm going to buy a contents company because now I'm going to be my own referral source, right?
That's
so,
right, man. Yeah,
so there's a lot of brands that work that way together, and that's awesome when that happens. Nothing makes me happier to see one of our franchisees at one brand be so excited about it and understand the synergies that they go out and they buy a second and third brand. That's just outstanding.
Yeah, no, you guys. I mean, it's a good feeling to watch people succeed that way. And I love the comment you made about community. I hear that every time I interview. It's so important to me. I think we talked about AI. Human connection is still so important, and local businesses are the backbone of that. It's our community, it's our friends, it's our family right down the road. It's important to build those connections with other business owners and then your customers. But it's so powerful. Like not everybody has that. I don't. I talk to people around the world, and I'm on Zoom all the time. And so for me to go into many franchise establishments that I do frequent, it's a connection with people that I like. So it's becoming more and more of a thing, even when it's that connection you remember. And certainly I love that you have that built in to the thinking, like, if this is how you are, then this would be a good fit for you. But anyway, and yeah, I'm sure you guys enjoy watching people succeed, either add another business, add another brand, and really kind of fulfill their dreams. And you see that a lot in FranDev. You get to bring them in, see where they were, and see them years later where they are, and that's kind of cool. Must be nice.
I love that. That's my favorite part of the job.
I know it must be. So anyway, so what's the best way for people to get you? Like, what's the best starting point? Website, phone number, that kind of thing.
So we've got an overall. The easiest thing to probably people remember is there's BELFORFranchiseGroup.com. So BELFORFranchiseGroup.com. Every one of our brands has its own independent, franchise development site where you can really dig deep into all the brands and you can reach out to us and contact us. But if the easiest thing to remember is to go to BELFORFranchiseGroup.com, and then all of our brands are right there on one page, and you can just click on whatever kind of interests you, and that'll get you over to the number to call, the person to reach out to, let you play through We're a big believer in self-education too. I think the times where it used to be people would hide a lot, frankly, and just if you want to know more, call the 800 number, or what have you.
Right.
I think in most areas, not just franchising, but when you Google things, right, most of us, whether it's a restaurant or reading reviews or going to Zillow for homes, whatever it is, we all like to do a little homework on our own. I think it helps us feel more educated about whatever it is we're looking into. So we try to provide as much information on our sites as we can. And then, you get to kind of go through it, and it helps, you might formulate 10, 20 questions out of that, right? And you go into that first call kind of already knowing, what things interest you, what things, raised eyebrows, raised questions, So we put as much information out there as we can, and you can use as much or as little as you want. If you're more comfortable just seeing the number, picking up the phone and calling us, that's great too. Like you said, the human connection, happy to talk to you all day long. But if you go to the site, you'll see all the information you could possibly want, and we'll be happy to reach out to you and contact you.
Yeah. And I would suggest too, like it's buying and selling. It's you give a lot of information, and the candidates should really go prepared, right? I mean, I know you're welcome to take the inbound calls, but I feel that this is serious stuff. These are incredible brands. It's not like they'll take anyone. But they, you want to do your homework. So it's good to do that ahead of time. Saves everybody time. But I just would say that to the listeners as well. But yeah, it's a little of both. And you guys are top notch. So it's not like you don't want to maintain that. So
No, not at all. Yeah, we certainly do.
for one more location, I think you have enough demand, probably, right? Well, anyway, that's really, really great. It was tremendous having you here. I want to have you back for sure. So we'll plan that out. But thank you so much for spending some time today.
No, I really appreciate the invitation. Obviously, anytime we get to talk about franchising, talk about our brands, we certainly want to embrace that opportunity. And like you said, there's so much more we could talk about, especially having so many brands that would love to come back and dig deeper someday. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about other franchisees. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to have all kinds of cool stuff to be talking about, 14 brands worth. So anyway, it was great to have you, Doug. And again, we'll talk soon.
All right, Rob, really appreciate it. Thank you.